So we had 23 shots to their 6. We hit the woodwork twice. We had 12 on target. They had 1. We had twice the possession that they did. Tottenham won, Newcastle won. Dr. Tottenham, we'll see you now. We are the Dr. Tottenham podcast. We are at Dr. Tottenham. That's at Dr. Tottenham. I'm at Z-Tranche. Timmy is at Timma, Timmah 621. Vass is at VCOM1. Dan is with us, and he is at Yidvids. You can find us on YouTube. We got a channel there. We appreciate your subscription. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your questions. You can find us just about anywhere. You find a podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music now, and other Apple, Android apps. So leave us a review. Man, I thought we had a lot of this shit out of our game. I mean, I don't know whether we can really, who's to blame for today. We'll start in our normal way, and we'll see where it takes us. Tim, I'll start with you with the lineup. Any major surprises that you saw today?
No, I'm not wasting that as my one question. You said I get one question this pod, so I'm passing that off to Dan. My question's not going to be lineup.
I think it is important that we let the listeners know that you've been mean as hell all week long. But I'm going to give you lots of questions today, starting with the lineup.
Hey, that's what I need to do to motivate you, because they heard last week how often you were messing up the rundown. That's my motivation tactic, to get the best out of you. It's up to you whether you want to turn it around and be a great host. It's up to you.
To be fair, I wasn't sure whether I was going to make the lineup today. I didn't know that I was going to get called on. I was so bad last week.
He gave you that talk, didn't he, Sam? He gave you that talk. Are we getting Sam or Sam's brother?
I did. Yeah, I did get that. I am the Deli Alley of the pod. All right. Speaking of Deli Alley,
you ask me You ask me every week about the lineup. Ask someone else. Let's get someone else's opinions on the lineup.
All right. Well, let's start. Okay. Well, seeing as I'm the Deli Alley of the pod, Vass. I mean, talk about Deli's exclusion.
I don't know what more needs to be said about Deli's exclusion. Deli hasn't been in good form for a considerable while. Part of that's down to him. Part of that is down to a system change. Jose's, I think, trying to make a point. There were rumours that we were trying to ship him off to other teams a couple of weeks ago. Then he's saying that he wants him to stay. It is concerning. He's only young, Dele Alli, but he's gone through a really rough period. But it is, as the same way as it's down to you, Sam, to be the great host that you want to be, it's also down to Dele to fight for his place. And I think you can gauge from Jose's comments when he's asked about the lineup, as he was again today before the game. And he said, I've got a lot of players. When they get their chance, it's up to them to play well enough to get more minutes. I don't know whether Dele's doing that, but the lineup as a whole, it was as expected, I guess. The only change really was Lo Celso in for Ndombele, and Højbjerg was back in the team as well. So standard sort of stuff, really.
Again, I'll ask you this. I mean, you watched All or Nothing. Was his exclusion surprising to you, sort of given the relationship that All or Nothing showed between Jose and Dele?
Nothing to do with the documentary, really. But I think from last week, I think he's, like Vass said, he's obviously trying to prove a point with Dele. I mean, I don't know whether it's going to work. I don't know whether he's going to ship him out or what the idea is. But it's not. It's the bollocks he gives about, we've got too many players, and I've got 18 good players trying to make the squad, was smashed to pieces when Jedson Fernandez came in to make the 18, and he was the 19th man who took over from Sissoko because of illness. So he's trying to make a point with him. It's too early to judge whether it's going to work or what we're going to do with him, but I don't buy the shit of we've got too many players. That's all. I presume Dele will come back in because we've got so many games next week. It's just a wait and see game, I think.
Tim, before we get into the handball and all that implies, come on, share your thoughts about Dele, and is it surprising to you that he wasn't in the squad at all today?
From the standpoint of just today being surprised that he wasn't included, I'm not, because he didn't do anything midweek to warrant his inclusion. He was pretty poor in the Europa League match, and he got subbed off early. And, we saw Jose do this with Ndombele, and right now you could say it worked from what we're seeing with Ndombele, that he's putting in the effort now. So maybe he has to do that now with Dele, and it's all down to Dele, because here's the thing. We know that Dele has immense talent. We know it. We saw it right when Jose first came and he had that boost. He had 4 goals, 3 assists in his first 5 matches, and then he went missing again. We've seen it in prior seasons where Dele was a star, and he's only 24 years old. So it's the same thing with Ndombele. You have a young player who has loads and loads of talent, but it really does look like, and it did this midweek, that Dele's a bit disinterested. And so it's down to him to make it work and get back to the Dele that we know, that we loved his first few seasons at the club, because that's not the Dele we have right now. And so it just depends. I mean, if he's going to get back to it, then yeah, you definitely keep him. But if this is the Dele we have now moving forward, you might as well move on from him before his value gets even worse. I don't think we should move on from him. I don't like the knee-jerk reactions after a single game. Now it's, oh, now we need to move on from Dele. Well, no, you should have been saying that for months now, because this is the same Dele that we've seen. So don't just midweek that cause your reaction to say he needs to be sold. You should have said that months ago, because it's just, he needs to turn it around, and hopefully he can.
Yep, agree with you. I mean, we talked a lot about Ndombele and his struggles, and at the end of the day, he's the man, that's going to bring him out of his issues first and foremost. And maybe not maybe. I think the same holds true with Dele, and maybe some of the progression that we've seen from Ndombele will rub off, and encourage Dele to do better. All right, so
it's just a big issue. It's a big issue when your number 10 is lazy. And if that's what's going to happen, then I'd rather him not be included. And that's, I guess, why he wasn't included today. Imagine if he would have been in there with how Newcastle sits back, how hard it would have been to create chances if Dele, with his, kind of lazy attitude that we've seen lately, was the one at our number 10 spot.
He's a better option than Fernandes on the bench, though, isn't he? Let's be honest. I mean,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
100% agreed on that.
And as such, that has to be a message, right? I mean, today was a message that you put Jedson in front of him. We did have a question on Dele. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but it was from Trey Terry at Trey Terry. Since we'll be talking about Dele, what would moving him on do to our homegrown situation? This is probably a good one for Tim. I know it was an issue at the beginning of the season. I don't see how it has gotten much better. I think Doherty and Bale count. I don't see us linked with any English striker or center back. Tim, it's only fair we direct this to you, because you know so much about this issue.
It does nothing. It's a misconception that you have to have a set number of homegrown players. The limit is on how many foreign players you can play, and that's it. So it does nothing to our homegrown situation. It's just we're still limited on the number of foreign players we can bring in. If you only have, what is it in UEFA? If you only have, I think, 17 homegrown players, well, then you can only field a squad of 24. If you have 18, you can field a squad of 25. It's because your homegrown or your foreign players are set at a maximum of 7. So it doesn't really do anything to that.
All right. VAR. Go.
Sorry. Just to wrap on Dele. I think a lot of it is down to him, as we all pretty much said. His best form came under Pochettino when he was playing practically up alongside Kane. And if you remember at the time, it was probably Son who was in and out the side, or he was playing wider. But in recent times, when the system changed, and also when Dele himself changed, I mean, he's a couple of years older now, he seems to have lost his way somewhat, and he's got to rediscover his way. He had an opportunity the other night in North Macedonia, and I think, did he come off at half time? Can't remember now. I think he did. So yeah, it's down to him, and I think Jose's given him a very public kick up the backside, and it's really down to how he responds now.
I suppose his treatment of Dele is really not much different than his treatment of Ndombele, right? I don't think there seem to be parallels here. And I don't think he's going to be.
Sam, you love Ndombele now, don't you?
Well, I mean, my God, yeah, he's maybe the light's coming on.
So this is where you apologize to Jose. This is where you apologize.
Come on, no. A couple games doesn't make a body of work, but it's certainly, things are certainly moving in the right direction, and he's certainly showing signs and flashes of this remarkable talent that we thought he was. And it seems like, and you know what he seems like? I mean, this is the perfect spot for a Vasconi body language section. His body language is better. He looks more confident. He looks happier. So maybe the same result can hold true for Daly. Just time needs to just kind of play it through. All right, look, it's been a really. I think it's been a shit. Forget about Spurs for just a second. It's been a shitty weekend for football. It really has been, and it's been a shitty weekend for football because of shitty rules and shitty infrastructure to apply rules, namely handball. We got fucked today, and plenty of other teams across the Premier League had similar instances. But you could argue that there was bad refereeing that sort of led up to the application or poor application of a shitty rule, which was was there an unwarranted foul for the free kick in the first place? So we're going to spend a lot of time on the handball. We're going to spend a lot of time on this sort of travesty. We got to thank some people for tagging us in a video, right? Keith K at K Club Keith, Big White Hart Lane at Spurs Last Minute, Joshua at How I Follow Sport. Dan, your thoughts on sort of the lead up, the foul, and then I guess we'll spend a lot of time on the handball itself.
So starting with the foul, I mean, at the time I thought, I'm not sure about that. And you see the replay, and Joe Linton's completely just dived into Højbjerg. But I'm not going to have a go at the referee for that. I don't think it was a foul, but referees can make mistakes, right? That's fine. I mean, that's a little, you sort of think, the referee probably shouldn't have given a foul there, whatever. The handball itself was just the most depressing thing I've ever seen. And I thought about this last week after we finished, and I thought to myself after we finished our pod, I thought we should have discussed the Doherty handball because I thought it was a disgrace then. It was awful. But we didn't because it was so meaningless in the end. We won 5-2. But this game, it's just a rule that is just not fit. And I'm yet to see one person on Twitter or anywhere who's gone, oh, well, this is why the rule's like this, blah, 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 blah. No. Literally everyone. You can't think of one person who doesn't think this rule is terrible. And it cost us today, completely cost us today, and it cost Palace yesterday. And I just don't think, I said to you guys before, I don't think the Premier League can keep this going for much longer. I expect them to change this rule, or at least change the interpretation of it by next weekend, because it's completely bringing the game into disrepute. VAR itself isn't the problem. It's the rules that they are changing to use VAR properly. This law wouldn't have come in if VAR wasn't a thing. We're on a downward slope here, and I don't want to be like sort of too dramatic about it, but the game is going to shit if we keep with rules like this. I mean, I'm echoing what everyone else is saying, really, but I'd like to get your thoughts. But it really, really deflated me early today, not just for Tottenham, but for football in general.
Yeah, a lot of people sort of share your feelings, Vass. You got to chime in here.
I mean, the free kick leading up to it, it's one of those, really. The guy did throw himself at Højbjerg, but that's because Højbjerg gave him the opportunity to do that. He kind of looked, Lo Celso did a similar thing earlier in the game, and he got penalised for it. It's just one of those things that referees will give. And I don't really know why. It's not really a foul. He didn't body check him as he was like running through on goal or anything. The guy had actually lost the ball. He gave the ball away. But so that was, I guess, a poor decision, but I can see where that come from, as Dan alluded to. In terms of the cross into the box, excuse me, Dyer actually got shoved slightly, not by Carroll, but by the other chap who was standing next to Carroll. I can't remember who that was. And that was enough for him to maybe move his arm. But as Dan has already said, it's an absolute joke. The ball was behind Dyer. There was no way he could see it. And in fact, the referee, on going to the screen to have a look at it for himself, still could have not given it if he had taken into account the proximity of the player. Dyer was that close to Carroll that you could argue that it falls outside of the construct of the law, of that particular handball law. So he had that opportunity, but I fear what VAR has done is it's made referees subservient to the guys in the room checking the monitors. So my argument last season was, why aren't they making the referee go to the monitor? At least just say to him, there may be something, go to the monitor and have a look. Because I felt like last season the referees were just saying essentially, look, it's not me, it's them over there. They've decided it's a free kick, a penalty, whatever. So I'm giving it. Okay. So I thought that by encouraging the referees to go to the monitor, it would allow them to make an independent and verifiable decision. But I fear that what it's still doing is the referees are sitting there thinking, well, if they're telling me to go to the monitor, then that means they must have seen something. So when that referee gets to the monitor, they're looking for it. They're not actually deciding for themselves. They're essentially saying, well, the people in whatever it's called, Stockbridge, whatever it's called, are telling me that there's something there, so there must be something there.
So you don't think that when it comes to the ref to go back to the screen that he's thinking in the back of his mind, well, they don't know themselves, and so I'm going to be sort of the final judge here, and this is now back in my hands?
You'd hope so, but they're not doing that. I feel, my personal opinion is that they're looking for something because the referees in the VAR room have identified something. And even before the actual handball, they were looking. They went back a bit further just to make sure it wasn't offside before the handball occurred. And that whole offside thing, it's so flawed. We've talked about it before, about how the technology can't really cope with making those decisions. And I don't know.
We had a question about that, actually. So RMCD at Mama Yid. This is a new listener question. How about the offside that was clearly and most definitely an offside, but was ruled onside? How exactly does that work? Who wants to tackle that one?
Well, I don't think it was Carroll that was. There was another player who looked offside.
Fernandez,
thanks, Dan. But you could argue that was that guy actually interfering, because the VAR guys, they essentially ignored that fella and they were just looking to see if Andy Carroll was offside because he was the one that headed the ball. And Andy Carroll was borderline. He could have been caught offside. I've seen them given, especially against us. But anyway, they ruled that Carroll was onside. But Fernandez just in front was offside. And you could argue that he interfered with play because he's dragging defenders with him. It's just become a whole mishmash of nonsense. It really has. It's depressing the fuck out of me. I've got to be honest.
Well, we've got to talk about the handball itself, the application of the law. We had loads of people that chimed in on this, and I got to credit a number of folks. Beard at JPF920, William I. Feingold at Billy Feingold, Sonaldo, I love this guy, is at Hyungmin Ronaldo, Drew McGarry reply guy at Tavares69, Lee Bennett at Lee Bennett 208, and a few more. Andy Commons at Andy Commons _, and Nathan Cohen at Nathan Cohen 17. My first question is this. Tim, I'll ask you this. I don't know whether you know this or not, to be fair. Why was the handball rule ever changed in the first place? Like, what was the intent for the necessitated, or was the reason for this change, which I think was it 2 seasons ago?
Well, I think the intent was to take out the decision on whether there was intent. They're trying to make it as clear for VAR as possible and take out any subjective opinion. Just objectively, did the ball hit the hand? Did it affect the play? And is it a handball? And that's where I'm having an issue with it. Is we all agree the law is shit, but I think it was properly applied, and I'm not really. I don't know what Bass thought the referee should do different going to the monitor, because it's the same thing. Of course, he's looking for a foul because that's the whole reason, or he's looking for that call because that's the whole reason he's going to the monitor. But I don't think he misapplied it at all, because I mean, it hits dire. The law itself is shit, but my issue with it is, why isn't it applied evenly? Why did we not then get a handball call right in that same kind of run of play with that Ndombele cross. Because it's the same thing. It clearly hit the guy's arm. It was in an unnatural position. So why is it not being applied evenly? And that's my biggest issue with all of this. Well,
Was
actually,
that
no, my
even
biggest issue with all of it is that the law sucks. That's my biggest
that
issue with
one
all of
reviewed?
it.
Was that one reviewed? I can't remember. Did they even go and look at that one?
They review,
I have no.
Yeah, they review all of them.
I don't know.
So must have been.
Video, okay.
Yeah, the one thing also can add to that is that how unfair that rule is that Andy Carroll can jump as high as he wants with his hands in the air like this, give it as much elevation as he can, but the law expects the defenders to jump like a fucking salmon.
Right.
It's not fair. I mean, I get that they want to put more goals into the game, but Dyer, to jump as high as Andy Carroll, needs as much elevation as he can. So you're going to have a lot of salmons as defenders jumping in the box, trying to hit the ball with no levitation at all, and the fucking, Andy Carroll can scroll around and do what he wants. It's just the worst rule I think that's ever been brought into any sport in history. And someone can tell me if you think anything otherwise, but I just can't see it at all.
It was an
I think
obvious,
if you're gonna keep up with that, you got to be a dolphin, not a salmon, because dolphins can jump higher.
Fine.
Well, there's a saying over here about salmon, Tim. That's probably why Dan used it. But I think what was I going to say?
Well, what's the saying? How are you not gonna educate me on this saying?
Well, when you leap like a salmon.
Like a 10 out of like a 7. Well, go on.
Yeah,
I get where it's at, but I've never heard that saying bore. I mean, I like to be educated. Green shirts, purple patches, and leaping like a salmon. I got it.
Oh, mate, I forgot what I was going to say now.
I was
going to say, sorry. Yeah, I remember now. It was an obvious tactic as soon as Carroll came on. Okay, they were going long, but that's not the tactic. Andy Carroll was crying foul and handball every time he went up. And eventually, something gave. It was just one of them. But, it spoiled what would have been a good day, because otherwise it was a decent performance by us, a very good performance, in fact.
Yep. And we're gonna get right into that. Before we do, I think it is interesting to just sort of ask ourselves, do we expect that this rule is going to remain in place for the rest of the season, or do we see FIFA? Was it the IAFB? I think is involved here. I mean, do we see enough collective groans across football that FIFA might make a change here?
I doubt it. I think they'll wait until the summer. They won't do anything mid-season. Personally, I don't believe they will anyway.
Well, the thing is with the IFAB,
I think they should.
Go on, Tim.
I was going to say, I think they should do something mid-season, but when this has had a direct impact now on the result of 2 games, only your third match week in, I don't know how you can change it midway, because next time it goes against us, and it's going to be like, oh, well, under the rule that they changed midway through the season, now we would have had a penalty, and now it's bullshit that it's not being applied evenly. It's never going to work out unless you just keep the shit rule the whole season, and then it's just applied evenly. But I don't know. They should have never changed it to begin with.
See, hey, real quick, before we move on, did it work?
Why do you keep cutting off Dan?
Yeah, stop cutting off Dan.
Oh, sorry, Dan. Apologize. I don't see your video. Go. Sorry, man.
Let me just add this in quickly. So the IFAB board, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's 8 members on it, and 4 are from the home counties FAs. So that's England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. So 4 of them are completely based in this country. I don't know their names. They will be seeing what's happening today, and the other 4.
How many countries are in with?
Huh?
How many countries are within this country?
Ireland's a separate country, by the way. Anyway, so half of the board, the IFAB, who brought in this law, are in this country. They are watching this football. They are seeing this reaction. It's not like they're in Zurich somewhere, or they're in Russia, whatever, thinking of these laws, and they're going to not really see this. They're going to see this. And with the amount of people who, on Twitter especially today, big high public profile football brains, like pundits, managers, even Steve Bruce came out after the game said we need to get together and solve this because it's not right. I just don't see a way. I mean, maybe I'm just being completely overreactive because it's my club and it's happened twice in 2 weeks. But as soon as this happens to Liverpool, this happens to Chelsea or whoever, Man United, it did happen to Man United yesterday.
Yeah.
they're gonna have to make a change. I know you say, wait, you shouldn't make a change to any rules mid-season, but I just don't think the product of football, I mean, it'll survive, but I don't think it can flourish with rules like this in it, because by the end, people are going to start getting sick, and it's a chipping away process. It's a straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing, and this isn't going to kill the game. People are going to watch, but you can't let something that is this controversial and this shit for the game continue for another 10 months. In my opinion, I could be completely wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if by next week we see a complete change.
Hope you're right. I hope you're right. I mean, there seems to be uniformity, as you said, across pundits, players, managers, all that are involved. So hopefully the four home country representatives of that board will speak up and initiate change. What really, I mean, obviously, shitty result is as a result of this shitty rule takes away from the fact that we really played pretty well today, particularly in the first half. I think we'd all agree there. We'll start it off with Mike Flynn at FLYNNY Flinny 403. How much can we complain about the end of the game, given we only managed to score one goal? And I'll add in Jeremy Harrer. One of the better performances since Moo's arrival in terms of dominating / controlling the game and dominating XG, a topic we don't really talk a whole lot about. Vass, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think I messaged after the game and said sometimes you'll get this if you don't take your chances. I know Dan doesn't agree with that take, and he'll tell us why in a bit. But had we taken our chances, then absolutely we should have been home and dry by half time. I mean, the goalkeeper had a blinder, got to be honest. He was probably man of the match. And I think as Spurs fans, as soon as you see an opposing goalkeeper play that well against you, you start to fear that it might be one of those games. And I blame Dan because at half time he WhatsApped and said, this is going to finish 1-1, don't you? So that's all your fault, Dan.
I was right.
I think
you were right, yeah. But we played very well. Lots of opportunities, as everyone said. I do have a couple of areas of our team that I'm still not happy with, but we'll come on to that maybe later on. But yeah.
What are your areas? Come on to it now.
Two areas, really. One, as you know, Tim, I have an issue with Lucas. We had a number of opportunities, particularly in the first half, for breakaways, and he just gave the ball away in midfield. He was looking for a pass to Kane a couple of times, and he just hit it to a Newcastle player. Totally killed the momentum. Earlier than that, he had an opportunity out on the right side to play in Doherty for a good opportunity. Took too many touches, turned back inside, played it backwards. Second half, he did this great turn and totally sold the Newcastle left back. He had acres of space to run into, and instead he tries a deep cross to the other side of the pitch, and we lost the ball again. Okay, now he stifles our attacking intent. I know Jose likes him, but I will be more than okay. Bale is different level, obviously, but that's going to be a massive upgrade on that side and one we badly need. The other area is Ben Davies. Now, I've always liked Ben Davies, but
hold on before you get on the Ben.
Go on.
Before you get on the Ben, I don't disagree with you on Lucas. And what I was saying mid-match doesn't mean I disagree. It's just I like to keep some positivity during the match. So it pissed me off when you're going negative during the match. I agree with you now after the match, and we can get all negative together about it because I agree 100% with that. It's just it's mid-match. I get so pissed off at you guys because it's all fuck this. It's gonna be 1-1. Lucas is shit. And I'm thinking like we just saw the best first half of football that we've seen under Jose Mourinho. We really did. That first half was a really good performance by the team. And so at halftime, you guys are going into that. I was like, fuck, man, like I want to mute you guys because that's not what I like to do during the game. I like to try and will the team on and be positive. But now we can talk about all that because I agree 100% with what you're saying, Bass.
Yeah.
And we saw that last week also we talked about it. And, at this point, I'd rather see Stevie B. I'd rather see Lamella. I definitely would rather see Bale. Any of those three I'd rather see in that role than Lucas right now. I think I still like Lucas as, a depth player, a squad player, and I think he could be really good as a super sub coming off, but you're 100% correct. Kills the momentum of the game with the way he gives up chances. And that last one you're talking about, I don't know if that was down to fatigue, and maybe if he's coming on as a super sub, he doesn't waste all that space he had after that great turn and just put in that cross to nobody. But
Maybe.
so I agree with you 100%, Bass. It's just during the game, I hate talking to you, but I'll agree with you now.
All right, I'll bear that in mind in future. But the other thing I was going to say was about Ben Davies. Now, he's gentle Ben. He's dependable defensively. He's a good defender. But as soon as he crosses that halfway line, he becomes redundant. And our play depends on which way Ben Davies' left foot is facing. Right, so when he gets the ball, it's generally facing backwards towards the centre backs. So when he gets the ball, it just goes backwards. Everything's on his left foot. Everything is inside. Everything is back. Nothing rarely goes down the line. And that's another momentum killer for us. And I can't wait until Reguilón is in the team because we needed something. And these are the two weakest areas for us. Problem is, of course, now we understand that Heung-min Son got a hamstring problem in the game, and that's why he came off. And it could be a lengthy absence, which means we're going to get more of Lucas, sadly. So, it's one of them. These are the only two negatives. But on the whole, absolutely right, Tim. That was the best performance we've had under Mourinho so far, in my opinion.
All right, let me play a little bit of counterpoint because you did see a good bit of Steven Bergwijn today, right? And I don't really recall singing his praises much either. I'm not suggesting that you're wrong to point out the things that you pointed out about Lucas, but it's not like we got a lot of help from Bergwijn unless I'm missing something there. And then Dan, I'll ask you this. I mean, Vass has said it. Tim certainly said it. Viewed that first half as our best. Certainly best 45 minutes under Mourinho.
Not 45 minutes, best first half.
Yeah, best first half. Yeah.
Because last week, second half was amazing. So if we're saying 45 minutes,
All right. Well, I'll try and ask.
It's the start to game, the mentality. That's where it's at for me.
Well, I want to ask Dan why he thinks that why he might agree with you there. What did you see, Dan, today in that first half particularly?
I don't know about halves. I can't remember past 2 days ago, but in terms of 90 minutes games, I think that was definitely top three performances. I think because we controlled the game from the start. I know Newcastle aren't much cop, but we controlled the game from the start. The intensity was good. I thought a lot of our players pressed, like Mourinho was going on about in the documentary every fucking 5 minutes. They actually did what they were asked of him. I think most of the players put in a pretty good shift. We should have scored a lot more goals. We were very, very tight at the back against a goal-shy Newcastle, granted. But in a way, except for the couple of chances we didn't put away, it was a perfect performance against a lower ranked side, if you like. So, I completely agree with them. And that's what pissed me off so much about the handball is that we won a lot of games last year when I was thinking, we're not playing well here. We're not playing well. We sneaked the 1-0. We sneaked the 2-1. This is a good green shoot, or whatever Tim wants to call it, about this is finally a decent bit of work for Mourinho, and you can see the sort of patterns that we're putting together in how we might play against the smaller clubs going forward. And it was just robbed from us right at the end. So,
funny thing was, Dan, don't you think that I felt really comfortable at half time with the way the game was going? Okay, obviously I wanted to have seen us score more goals, but the more the second half went on and we weren't scoring, I got more and more anxious. Yeah. Because at the back of your mind, you're always, this is Spurs, this could happen, And Newcastle were sort of a jinx for us. I mean, we haven't beaten them at home, I think, once out of the last 5 seasons, something like that. So,
Great.
It was one of them.
The one thing I thought of halfway through the second half was I could imagine what this stadium would feel like if there was fans there, because that had a proper nervy old ending to it. It also really reminded me of some of the games we played under like Redknapp and maybe some of the early Pochettino games where we scored and we played really well, but we just hadn't finished it off. And I just thought, this is the time. Marino's there. We weren't giving up any chances at all, but wasn't to be.
Look, I want to combine sort of two questions here and make it sort of one discussion point, one concept to talk about. Cooper, he is at an American Spurs. His thing is, we actually played well. I think we all agree that. Hit the post twice, moved it well, just couldn't finish our chances. I think we honestly played really, really well. Just a decision that went against us. And the next sort of discussion point that we have, bullet point that Tim has in the rundown, unwarranted Jose hate. Sam needs to justify the post. He tagged us and how he puts this match on Jose for fault. I'm not.
Yeah,
but
justify yourself.
I think it's a very justifiable discussion point. And I'll go back to the comment that Vash said. He didn't start feeling sort of squeaky bum and worried until 10 or 15 minutes into the first half, maybe. I felt it at halftime. I felt it at 1-0. I felt it for the reasons that Dan just talked about. Sort of this legacy that we have, right? Did it under Harry, did it under Jose, played well, didn't get it done. You guys all know I'm watching All or Nothing now, and Jose talks about this constantly. He talks about this change in mentality. And the harsh reality is, for me, right, is it's just simply all about results. Tim, this was a classic situation where I didn't give a fuck how we hung on to 1-0, just needed to hang on to 1-0 or get a jammy goal for 2-0, and we just didn't do it. So how much of that, and is it fair to have a discussion about mentality here? And I'll start it with you, Timmy.
I don't think so. From the performance we saw, from the effort the players were giving on the pitch, I don't think there's any discussion today for mentality. We put in a good shift. Højbjerg was fucking amazing.
He was good.
The way he bossed that midfield, and that's what's been different from previous matches when you had that Højbjerg-Winks combo, is that they were actually progressing up the pitch against a Newcastle team that was sitting so deep, and we were breaking them down. And so my question to you is, you're saying you're getting nervy when it's 1-0 down. So what would you do to resolve that? Well, you're going to bring on more attacking players and try and score a goal, right? Well, Jose brings on Stevie B, Lamela, and Ndombele. He doesn't go ultra defensive to try and protect the lead like many of us thought Jose would do. He continues to go for it. And that's why I think it's unwarranted trying to put fault on Jose for this match, because I don't think he did anything wrong with his team decision. Look, the Sonny move was a forced change. He's got a hamstring injury. Right. So that's where I think it's unwarranted, because I saw a great mentality from the team. I saw them continually try and break down a team that was sitting deep against us, create chances, have all the possession, and a bullshit handball, and their only shot on goal is a penalty kick. Defensively, we were sound. We maintained our composure the entire game. So that's where I get that I think it's unwarranted to come after Jose at all for today's performance.
Well, I want to be clear that it wasn't my intent to be going after Jose. I think my intent is as simple as this. You go back to sort of what Bass was talking about Lucas being on a breakaway, making poor decisions. I mean, that's partly mentality, right? When you're in a situation where you need to put a game away, and for whatever reasons, and a goalkeeper had a fantastic performance today, which certainly deterred a lot of our efforts. I get those things. But it's sort of like, this sort of, bullshit walks mentality. We just simply didn't get it done. And what I fear more than anything else is this adds, and maybe to your point, unnecessarily, but it still adds to that tag of weak mentality, that you walk away from a result like today and all you see is the result. And then you think to yourself, well, we just didn't get it done, and it worsens our woes. I don't know, Dan. I mean, am I way
off? Real quick before Dan goes in, Sam, I'll just say, once you get to episode 9 of All or Nothing, since you're actually watching now, I think your opinion on Jose will change even more, and I'll leave it at that.
I'll say this: my opinion on him has changed a ton from All or Nothing, but none of that changes the fact that we didn't get it done today. We didn't.
So my theory on this is that if Newcastle had scored in the 95th minute with a cross from Matt Taylor, whoever, one of their players, and Dyer got beat by Carroll at the back post with a really good header, I'd be like, do you know what? Yeah, we should have killed them off. But today we didn't give him a shot on target for the whole game. And we hung on to a 1-0 lead. It wasn't even a hang on, really. We were bossing the game. We were dominating it. We didn't give them a sniff. And that was whilst still trying to score more goals, unlike other games that we've seen last season and even the start of this. I don't think you can blame him today. There's one thing to blame for today, and it's that shit fucking rule that shouldn't be in the game of football. And I just don't. Yes, if we'd have scored 3 goals, we'd have been fine. And yes, we probably should have scored more goals. But when you score 1 goal and don't give the other team a shot on target, and the only shot on target they get is from a handball rule that's ridiculous, I just think it's just a bit. I think it's a bit of a stretch to blame Mourinho anyway.
You know what? Newcastle this season have had 3 shots on target, and they've scored 3 goals. 2 of them against West Ham. They were the only 2 shots on target that they had, and 1 today, which was a penalty kick. They've had 3 shots on target all season, and they've scored 3 goals, and I think they got the same points as us. It's so fun.
and people got on us for naming the podcast Dr. Tottenham. Anyway, all right, so we had midweek match, which we did. We went 1-0 down in that match, didn't we? Oh no, we were 1-0 up, and then we went 1-1, and we ended up. Somebody named something that was mention worthy about our midweek match in North Macedonia, as I've learned from Coney earlier, not South.
Going on to what Bass was talking about earlier, Ben Davies, their equalizer in the second half, shouldn't even had the space for that shot. Ben Davies gave him too much space, did a weird half turn his body away from the ball coming at him, and I mean that's one thing that sticks out for me. The other thing, and I don't really care to discuss this match, but Ndombele, the effort he put in, being the last man to head away that chance instead of Davies being there, and Ndombele's at the back post heading it away, then sprinting to try and save a ball from going out for a corner, sliding, ultimately goes out for a corner, which we head away, and then he's just sprinting down the other side of the field, starting that attack. I just love what I'm seeing from the player, and we hate the phrase, but it's like a new signing because we didn't have that last season.
Yeah, he's making me want to take back some of my comments about him being a lazy player, and that's just sort of that's at the heart of who he is, and we're always going to struggle with getting that out of his game. And to be fair, the last 2 games, I haven't seen any laziness out of him at all. Some miscellaneous discussion items. We got a question from Van Sal. He's at VBeats10. How do we replace Son? Any way we can reshape this team so his spot is taken by Dele, Lucas, and Stevie B seem useless. I want to say one thing about my time that I spent with All or Nothing. That I clearly didn't give Jose really any credit for being a football manager. And one of the things that really struck me was that, man, he really dealt with some injuries, right? I mean, I really didn't stop to think about losing Kane, losing Son, losing Bergman, trying to desperately make Europe right with all of his injuries. So here we find ourselves with a key player injured again.
I didn't say it every pod last year when you guys were hating on him.
Yeah, well, anyway, look, so maybe I'm not as worried as what I might have been before because he clearly has shown an ability to manage around key injuries. But we're going to be without Son for a few weeks. Dan, I'll ask you. Do you think we have the wherewithal and a plan to sort of see some success even without Son?
We've got how many games we got next week? 3. Is that right? 3 next week? Yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So I presume we just get through with what we've got at the moment. I expect you'll see Lamela come in. Lucas will still play quite a lot. Stevie B will probably start. And Ndombele or Ndombele and Lo Celso could potentially both start. A little kind of just a switching system. I don't know. I don't know how long Son's going to be out for. Someone said it was a while, but a hamstring injury isn't usually more than 4 weeks. Could we potentially see him at the end of the international break? Bale should hopefully be fit by then as well. Look, we've got enough players in that position to get by. We've got a lot of games, but it's not ideal, but we can cover him a bit.
Here's my take on how you deal with it. It's definitely not with Dele. Dele's not going to replace Son. We talked about it already. The work rate, you're not getting that by bringing Dele in if Son's out. Really, where I think you replace Son is okay, so Son is playing on the left side for us and drives our attack on the left side. How do you switch that or fix that when he's gone? Well, instead of Ben Davies, you put in Reggie to drive the attack on the left side. So not necessarily with another like for like, but just the attack coming from someone else on the left, because that's where we're going to miss Son is the threat on that side of the field.
Well, we still got a week left in our ability to sign a player or two.
No love for Reggie. No love for Reggie.
No. Love for Reggie. I think that's great. I can't argue with you on matters like this. But we got a chance to bring some players in, and there seems to be a couple that kind of at the top of the list for the now. Skriniar and Milik are the links. We've got questions as to how we feel about these signings. So I'll start with Vass. Vass, Dan Ritz on Facebook, he asks, would Milik really want to go to Spurs to sit behind Kane? This is a question that we ask about every striker that's rumored to come in. He doesn't see a formation change happening with Bale coming back. Are they just using Spurs to up a bid or serious interest? Your thoughts on Milik, pal?
Milik seems to be running out of options, really. I don't know too many clubs that are in for him right now. If you believe what you read, then Spurs' interest is quite serious and something could potentially happen. Whether he comes in to sit behind Kane or play alongside Kane, you can only have to go by Mourinho's comments. And he said that he doesn't want to sign players who are afraid to come here and sit behind Kane. And in any case, he wants players that can play instead of Kane, behind Kane, with Kane. He wants somebody who's going to be that good. So if he feels Milik is that person, then I'm sure Mourinho will sell the club to him, and I'm pretty sure Milik would come. So yeah, that would be an interesting one. How we set up if he does turn up, I don't know. I mean, we're going to have a lot of options now, aren't we? Especially with Bale in the side.
Do anyone have
hold on? I got
feeling?
I got something to add on Milik.
Oh, good, because great. Go ahead.
So I really do think he would come to sit behind Kane because he did agree to personal terms with Juve. Well, why would he do that? He's going to sit behind Ronaldo and Bernardeschi and Dybala. So it says he's not afraid of the competition if he's going to actually agree to personal terms with the club. It just happened to be that Juve didn't want to pay what Napoli was asking for a player in their last season, and instead they moved on for a loan for Alvaro Morata. And so he's already shown that he's okay going to compete for a spot. So I don't think that's the issue with it. I think he'll come and try and compete with Kane or try and see what he can add.
Well, could he add sort of a level of sort of multifacetedness? I mean, could he play different roles to sort of what Vass was speaking to earlier? The kind of player that can do a lot of things, not just be a number 9.
I'm not sure on that. I don't see us wanting to change something. I think our best role is still playing with Kane as the focal man, and I don't think we need to change that for a new signing coming in.
So loads of people have been.
Fuck Dan, why do you say that?
Well, no, I mean, unless he's bringing Ronaldo in, we might change the system for Kane. But I mean, Milik isn't quite that, is he? I don't think.
I like how you rephrased what you were saying.
What? I think you took that the wrong way, Tim, mate. I have no idea what you mean. I have no idea.
Well, you've all totally lost me, so I've got no idea what's going on right now.
I'm in the dark too, Vass. So I'm going to steer the ship back to something we can actually chime in on. Lots of people have been surprised about our transfer activity relative to lack of sales. So it's probably worth spending some time on who might be sold. So who aside from Dele, and I'm not convinced that Dele is going to be moving on, particularly this year. Josh Green on Facebook, he says, "Is Dele a cooked goose, or can we reinvent himself?" We talked about this earlier, but let's talk about potential sale candidates. Dan, we'll start with you, and we'll all chime in on this, okay?
Well, it's the same as I mentioned it last week. I thought Dele or Lamela. I think one of them would probably go. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I think if we get a good offer for a few players, we'll take it. But in terms of the players that might actually feature in the first 11, I think Dele or Lamela. I think still looking for players, looking for buyers for Foyth. Who else? God,
You think Aurier is still for sale?
I think Aurier's up for sale. I did see something about him saying he wanted to sign a new contract and he thought he was much better than Doherty, but I don't think Mourinho does. So I think his time.
I don't think
he's. It is a question.
Why does everyone think he's up for sale?
Yeah.
We got an option there with Tanganga. I just don't see Mourinho liking him at all. I mean, how much time has he featured this season? One game in the Europa League. I just think we could probably. He's still young enough to get a bit of money for him, not the 24 million, but I just don't see him staying. I mean, if he does, I think it'll be because there's not enough interest rather than because we want him to stay.
I know it's early, controversial question here, but do you guys see Doherty as an upgrade on Aurier? Because I don't quite see it yet.
I do. I think
I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I do certainly offensively, and he's a pretty tight. Couple of moments today that I said to myself, "Wow, he's a pretty tidy player."
Yeah, but then there was a couple of moments where he got beat, and it was like ambling back. Where if Aurier had done it, we'd all be slating him for it. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm just putting it out there.
How many times did you see him on the?
I know exactly when that happened too. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, how many times have you seen him on the left side of our own box? Not once.
I saw Davis on the right side of our box in the last game. But,
we've already established we don't like what he's doing. We're saying
the thing is with Aurier, why I can appreciate the comments of Tim, because you know what, I don't think he's bad. I think he's an athletic guy. He's talented. He clearly has the ability to do good things. The narrative that all he does is pump in shitty crosses is just simply not true. He's scored some really good goals. I mean, if there's a way that you can afford to keep him on the bench, I think he's going to make Doherty better, and Doherty's going to make him better.
I agree, actually.
Not terribly different than what we have with our competitive situation with fullbacks. Years in the Pochettino years.
The player who needs to move on, just absolutely needs to move on, is Gazzaniga. I don't know why he would stay here. It's clear with Jose's decisions, playing Hart midweek and having Hart on the bench, that Gazzaniga's third choice. That's a player that you can get money from. If I'm him, I'm going to my agent saying, "Get me out of here. I need to play." Or at least be second choice. He's not even second choice. He's not even playing cup matches for us.
He was third choice at Southampton, wasn't
he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not a Sessegnon? Just because we couldn't. Shouldn't
Sessegnon's going on loan. I am pretty positive Sessegnon is going to go out on loan, and that loan within England, it doesn't end on October 5th. You still have time after that to loan and sell within England. So I think we'll see a number of players after that move out on loan. Jet Clark, Sessegnon, Cameron Carter-Vickers. I don't know why you would loan him out in the last year of his contract unless it's with an option to buy, but I could see him moving on. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement. Probably, anywhere 5 to 8 players, I would think, move out.
Cameron Carter-Vickers is an interesting one because he's in the last year of his contract. If you loaned him out, they'd sort out his wages. And also, I think because he was homegrown by us, I think we would get a fee no matter where he went for his next club. There might be some sort of rule on that. I remember having to Danny Ings from Burnley to Liverpool that time. So we would. He's not. We're not going to get any money for him because obviously he's going to lose his contract. But we will get recuperated some way depending on where he goes next.
Okay.
Well, lots of permutations, and last week I'll steal a phrase from All or Nothing, which I just don't believe it, but he said it for years, and he said it on All or Nothing. He made the comment that everything happens in the last week of the window. So here we are. So it should be an interesting week for us. Timmy, we talked about Sonny. We know he's injured. You didn't even look at the opposition injuries.
No, hey, at least you're looking at WhatsApp now.
What? This is a first, isn't it? This is a first.
It is. I'm sorry. I was out running errands. I got to get home. I got to draft the rundown. I got to look up injuries. So no, I'm sorry. I dropped the ball on this.
Well,
I know our injuries. I'm sorry. I have not looked at the opposition.
Tell us about our injuries, starting with Young-Min Son.
Yeah, Son. I mean, hamstring. Jose said he's out for a while. How long that means, I don't know. The problem with a hamstring injury is you can come back from it quite quickly. It's just one that can flare up real easily through the season, as we've seen with Delhi over these last 2 years or so. It's consistent hamstring issues with him. So that's the biggest concern with the hamstring with Sonny, is not how long you're going to be out, but the potential that it could keep coming up throughout the season.
Hey, real quick. I know you hate it when I interrupt your injuries, but I do have a question. You talk about hamstring injuries. I mean, none was worse than Harry Kane's, right? Does it surprise you how quickly he has come back from that great of a hamstring tear? The fact that it took surgery and that he is playing to the extent that he's playing.
No,
Lockdown.
He's a fucking god.
He does not have mentality issues.
He does not. He has risen. Harry Kane is not human. Okay,
He's not.
It doesn't surprise me.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
No, I don't know. It might. It is interesting how Harry's come back from that. But I mean, Harry's just determination to work back from an injury and the time he puts in. It's nobody else has that work rate that he does. But yeah, that's the concern with Sonny. And it just happened. We're recording only a few hours after the match. There has been no report, so just keep an eye on what the club comes out and says on Sonny's injury. Tanganga finally back in training. He had that thigh issue, but he's been pictured back in training, so that's very good news that we could see him after this international break. Reggie had the ankle injury, but he was able to make the bench today. So once again, good news there. Sissoko missed out, but it was due to illness, so it's not necessarily an injury. And then Bale, we know he's just kind of working on match fitness, dealing with that knee injury he had for Wales, and it sounded like he should be available after the international break. So, I mean, it's a tough week with 3 more games in 6 days, but the only injury that we're looking at kind of long-term after we get past that is going to be Son, and it's a huge injury, but hopefully he can come back quickly. So I'm sorry, I dropped the ball. I don't have anything else. That's your injuries only for us.
I'm grateful for just our injuries. You do such a good job. A takeaway that I had today about one of Gareth Bale's weaknesses, not on the rundown, he's a weak clapper. I'm not a big fan of weak clappers. Did you guys see him clapping today after he scored a goal? Like he was at a tennis match?
Someone said it was a golf clap.
But
yeah, it was maybe it was a golf clap. Maybe that's what it was. But he had some geezer that left him. It was doing the same thing.
But Sam, you commented during preseason about how you liked Højbjerg pointing. Did you see him pointing during the match?
Loved it. And I love it.
Yeah, because as well. I think he was pointing up, the cockerel on the top of the stadium. He was pointing to something.
It shows 3 things: either you are a leader, or you want to be a leader, or you're just kind of faking being a leader. And I'm fine with all 3. All right, so we have 27 matches, I think, in the next 6 or 7 days. We should probably review some of them. But before we do, Dan, I'll ask you this: what's our priority this week? Is it league? Is it Europa League? Is it Carabao Cup?
So last week, at the same time last week, you said someone said to me, "What's the priority?" I'd say Premier League, Europa League, Premier League. All those 3 games would be our strongest team. The Carabao Cup, you sort of play your kids. The problem is this week we've got the same schedule, well, the schedule we should have had last week, but that Carabao Cup game's Chelsea, who have a massive squad and are going to play good players. I don't know what Mourinho's going to do. I said last week, actually, I think he was going to mix and match, and he wasn't going to completely rule out any of the games. He was going to try and field a team that could win the game against all 4 oppositions. But I think I bet now that not one person in the whole of Spurs Twitter or who listens to the show could give me the 11 names for the next 4 games and be completely right, because it's just impossible. I just do not know what he's going to do.
I can tell you who it's not going to be.
Delhi.
Well, no, I think Delhi will play in one of these, but no, and it's been a huge surprise. These youngsters, Sirkin, Harvey White, Jack Clark, Fabian Malachi Walcott, like all these players that we heard he was bringing up through the first team, and we thought surely with this fixture congestion, a lot of the kids are going to play to help us make it through. And I've been extremely surprised by what the lineups Jose has been putting out there. You look even midweek in North Macedonia, we didn't even have a single one of our young players on the bench. So he's taken every single game seriously, and I am very pleasantly surprised by that. Extremely surprised that we just don't have these young players in it. And surely with, the final round of Europa qualifying and then against Chelsea and then Manchester United, none of them are going to play this week.
Well, with the sorry, Vas. Sorry, do you want to go? With the Europa League qualifying, with the round in the actual group stage, you can maybe afford to put some of the kids in, because if we lose one game, it's easily clawbackable. But the problem is these are one-off ties, and we've struggled a little bit in both of them so far. So you can see why he hasn't. I expect him. I think we'll see a few of the more promising younger players probably play against Chelsea. I mean, I don't know what you think.
I don't know, to be honest, because I think our squad size has sort of swollen now. I mean, today, for example, we potentially had Jedson and Delhi at home, and Tanganga is not even in there. So we've got a good sort of 18, 19 players, 20 players right now, which you could mix and match. And that's not even factoring in Gareth Bale, who've now joined, and Reguilon, who's now joined. So I don't know. I think that's made it harder for these youngsters to even make the bench in some of these games. And Dan's quite right. The Europa League is a priority, and the fact that they were one-off ties, that's just heightened each game's importance. So you can't really do it. I mean, if Tuesday's game was against Orient, then you'd think there'd be some wholesale changes. But now, can you really do that with Chelsea coming to White Hart Lane? I don't know. I think if Son was still fit, then he might have rested Harry Kane on Tuesday. But now he can't even do that. So it's going to be interesting to see who lines up in the next couple of games.
Do you think Kane's going to play Tuesday and Thursday?
The thing is, if we don't play Kane on Tuesday, who do we play in his stead? Because Bale's not ready. We don't really have a recognised striker to put in his place. I would have happily carried on with Son playing the striker role, but of course he's injured now. So I suspect possibly Kane will play on Tuesday, but then maybe be on the bench for Thursday.
He'll play Tuesday, Thursday, and twice on Sunday.
Superman.
I mean, if you have to ask yourself, like, which one of those two matches, Tuesday or Thursday, could you get away with Kane not playing? Tim, which match do you think he could get away with not playing?
I mean, just looking at, you would say Thursday, just by the sheer level of competition you're going up against. Yeah. Chelsea or Maccabi Haifa. Or I probably fucked that pronunciation up, didn't I?
No, you haven't.
No, I think you actually nailed that.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But I mean, Thursday, just looking at it on paper, that would be the one where you think he would be rested. And it might be a situation of he plays against Chelsea and then maybe he's on the bench and comes in like he did in North Macedonia. For me, though, personally, prioritizing these matches, I would say, the Thursday one's the most important, because you lose that, you're out of Europe altogether. But given that, Tuesday's against Chelsea, it's just drawing me that to me is my main priority, is winning that, because it's your first derby of the year. And that competition is your first attempt at a trophy for the year. The competition is going to end much earlier. So, you lose that one, there's one trophy that's already slipped away.
So mentality is a process, right? And the man just talked about this, Tom, got to change the mentality. It doesn't happen overnight. Vass, do you think that we should prioritize Chelsea just because a victory against Chelsea, regardless of what kind of lineup they throw out against us, that's a catalyst for belief?
I don't know. That would depend on who Chelsea field in their own lineup on Tuesday, I suspect.
Does that really matter, though? In retrospect, does it really matter?
Put it this way. If obviously I want us to win both games, but if we lost one of those two games this week, Chelsea or Maccabi Haifa, then, or if, let's put it differently, if I had to win one of those two games this week, then I'd want to beat Maccabi Haifa. because I'd want to stay in the Europa League, most definitely.
Yeah.
So that's the crux of it. I think Jose will put a strong enough team out to compete in both games. And you're quite right, Sam. Beating Chelsea would give us a massive boost because it is Chelsea. But for me, the one we must win is the one against Maccabi Haifa. And Maccabi Haifa are no mugs. They've played in the Europa League before. So yeah, we need to take that game seriously. It's not going to be easy.
Two more really quick points on this. You win Tuesday. It could be a huge catalyst for the season, but it's a double-edged sword because you lose Thursday, and that can be even worse because you're out of Europe altogether.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. It's a double-edged sword. You got to go full strength on both of these. You can't.
We have to win both
lose
games.
either of those.
That's exactly what we're saying. You're right.
And then hold on. My last quick point on it is, saying it again. My head says Thursday. My dick says Tuesday.
One last thing for me on this actually as well is that the problem is I agree. But I just don't think we can field a full strength side for Tuesday because that's in less than 48 hours. I mean, in terms of like sports science and that, they wouldn't recommend any player plays a league without at least 2 days rest. So I don't know anyone who played 90 minutes a day, Kane, blah, 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 whoever, is going to be able to start that match. I think maybe if it was super, super important, maybe they would. And they do over Christmas sometimes. I'm just not sure what he can field on Tuesday of someone who's played 90 minutes today.
Yeah, I think the strongest side will come out on Thursday, personally.
You're probably right, but you know what? There's one other thing that we haven't really talked about, and that's sort of bragging rights. I mean, Jose needs a win against an ex-contemporary or an ex-club. I mean, I think he needs this victory as well for his own ego, right? So these are, in my mind, these are two must-win matches, and we've got to find a way to field, strong teams to try and get results out of both of them. Let's see here. So we had a question from San Diego Spurs at SD Spurs. I'm extremely worried about the confidence we'll now have going into Tuesday. Chelsea will be walking in, heads held high after a massive result, while Spurs are like a discarded condom in the middle of the road. Discarded condoms. Dan, I'll turn this over to you.
Why? Why is this coming to me?
I don't know.
You live in Spain, don't you?
Because you're the only one not married and should be using them. That's why it's going to you.
I think you're the only one that's single, so we just started with you.
Oh, and I'm in Spain. They're a Catholic over here.
He's got a Spanish girlfriend, Sammy. We all know this.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm joking. Right, so what's the question?
Confidence, I think.
Oh, confidence, yeah. I mean, our confidence, I think our confidence should be quite high. I mean, I know we got completely robbed today, but I think what Mourinho said today about us playing really well was right. And I think the players know that they played well today. Like I say, whether it's the same players on Tuesday or not, I don't know, but wait and see, I guess.
Okay.
All right. My God, when does this run of 3 games a week finally end for us?
This is the last one, isn't it?
Yeah. This is the last one? Good Lord. Well, hopefully it ends successfully and with health. Shout outs. We got anything we failed to talk about or someone wants to bring up before we close this mother down?
I shout out David Ellery for being one of the worst rule changes in football's history. And yeah, I hope you get sacked instantly.
Rule changes or rule interpreter? Aren't the rules by IFAB or something? So.
Yeah, he's head of it.
I mean, he's the culprit, right? I mean, he's the rule change. Did I hear this right today? They said that he's responsible for the introduction for as many as 200 rule changes in the last couple of seasons. That's crazy to think.
His legacy will be the worst handball rule change of all time, and the fact that one person can take a kickoff.
Who is David Ellery?
He's a former ref, Sam. You probably do recognise him by sight. You will know him.
Well, the name sounded really familiar, and I was like, why do I know him? Okay, so he's an ex ref. But all the refs hate this. All the refs hate this too, making their lives much, much harder. Anyhow, all right. Well, here's my prediction.
I would like to shout out Sam, because you actually stuck to the rundown today. And so I'd also like to shout out myself for, getting the best out of you and
Thank you.
grilling you all week. I think it's really down to my management style, and you took to
The
it
truth
and you
is,
wanted to make yourself better.
the gaffer rang me on Skype this week. We had our video call. He sat me down. He told me that he believed in me. He told me that he felt like I had the talent to do the job, but I
Put
really
an
just,
arm around your shoulder.
yeah, he did. Yeah, other hand was around my left butt cheek, but I didn't quite look comfortable. But yeah, he believed in me, and I really worked hard this week. And I'd just like to, take this Man of the Pod award that he's giving me and give him all the credit for it.
Nice.
And on that note, come on, you. All right.